Okay. All right. Now, before I go on, just to address any potential concerns, yes, I did wash my cutting board, knives, and hands between each step. It's highly recommended. You don't want to cross-contaminate. Also, always wash your produce. Whether you've grown it yourself or gotten it from the store, wherever you might have obtained it. I kind of look at my garden produce like I would a child. Just because I raised it, clothed it, and fed it until it reached maturity doesn't mean I know everywhere it's been. And by that, what I mean is I don't know what little critters have made their way into my garden when I wasn't looking. I wasn't out there 24/7. I couldn't possibly watch them that long. So you want to be careful. You never know what has come into contact with your produce. Anyway, so yeah, I've got all of the diced up ingredients, the Vidalia onion, green chilies, pork, and tomato in there. And now, when I cook a chicken, I like to cook whole chickens in my crock pot. And I use a crock pot in the summertime especially because nobody wants to stand over a hot stove or have the oven going in the heat. It's not fun. So yeah, I adore my crock pot and I use it like crazy in the summertime. But anyway, when I cook a whole chicken, I save the broth. I just like the way my broth tastes better. I like the seasonings I use and whatnot. And then I put it in the freezer. I've allowed this to thaw a little bit. It's still basically a chunk of frozen broth. But that's about 2 cups in there. And I will put that in there. And I don't mind it being frozen because, like I said, it's going to be in the crock pot. And I will cook this on high for about an hour to begin with. You don't have to use your own broth. I realize that that's not something that everybody's going to do. You can use the, box or can or whatever. You can get your broth anywhere. Just use chicken broth. And like I said, I'll cook that for about an hour. And then my seasonings, I'm going to add a little bit more garlic powder, cumin, and onion powder. And this one is, I'm not going to use cilantro in my green chili. I don't care for it in green chili. I do like it in salsa or picante, but not green chili. So I'm going to use a little bit of salt. Now this is an Irish salt. I can't remember what it's called, but I like it. It's the grinder here. And it's not quite as salty, if that makes any sense. Doesn't have that real salty taste. But I'll grind up a little bit of this in there. And you can use regular table salt. Just don't get too carried away. You don't want it to be too salty. And then pepper grinder, same thing. You can just use ground pepper. I like mine a little, my pepper ground a little bigger, so more coarse. There you go. And then and I don't measure. That's probably a problem, but it's not going to hurt anybody. Go by taste. Onion powder, to guess, I would say, I don't know, teaspoon to a tablespoon. On the garlic and the onion, probably a half a teaspoon. I don't use a whole lot of it to begin with, especially onion powder. You've already got onions in there, and you cooked your pork in the garlic powder already. So if you use minced garlic, I would use at least 2 cloves. That's what I would do if I was, and it's going to be heavier garlic. But taste changes every time I make this, and that's fine. It's got the same general. But anyway. So now that I've got all my seasonings and all my ingredients in there, I'm going to put it on high in the crock pot. This crock pot that I've had since the turn of the century. It actually belonged to my dad, and I do believe he bought it in the 70s. You've got to love old appliances. These things, and it works better than my new one. I actually have two crock pots. I've got a bigger one that bought about 9 years ago, and this works so much better. I love this crock pot. It's ancient, but somehow it's survived all of these years intact, and I love it dearly. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and set that on high for about an hour, and then once that's done, after about an hour, once the broth melts down, I will show you the final step, and that would be making the roux to thicken your chili. Anyway, see you on the next step.